You're hearing headlines about 10K caps and crypto crackdowns. But behind the noise, something way bigger is happening, not just in London, but across the Atlantic. Because while the Bank of England is quietly setting up its Digital Securities Sandbox, Washington is moving too. And together, these two financial superpowers might just be laying the foundation for a regulated crypto world. A world where the bridge between the old banking system and tokenized assets might just be XRP. Let's unpack what's really going on, because this isn't about regulation slowing crypto down. It's about regulation building its rails. So, what exactly is the UK's Digital Securities Sandbox? Think of it as a testing ground for the future of money. The Bank of England and the Financial Conduct Authority have joined forces to let banks, fintechs, and blockchain firms experiment with tokenized versions of real financial instruments. Everything from bonds to payment systems, but under relaxed regulatory rules. The idea? Let them build, test, and connect tokenized assets in a controlled environment before rolling it out to the real world. KPMG, HSBC, and Barclays are already circling this. Global Custodian even confirmed that HSBC joined the sandbox to test live digital issuance and settlement. And it's not just talk. These pilots go live by early 2026. The DSS will run until 2028, and it's not even limited to pounds. Non-GBP assets are now allowed. Translation? They're not building a UK sandbox. They're building a global financial playground. But here's where it gets spicy. Inside the consultation papers, the Bank of England dropped a phrase that most people ignored: interoperable settlement assets. That's a fancy way of saying we need a bridge, a neutral asset, that can connect all these tokenized networks. And if you followed XRP for more than 5 minutes, you already know that's its entire design philosophy. XRP isn't just another token. It's a liquidity bridge, a connector between regulated digital cash and tokenized assets, the plumbing underneath everything else. So while the media spins that 10K stablecoin cap headline like it's a crackdown, the fine print is doing the opposite. It's building Ripple's playing field, because the regulators just admitted they need interoperability. They need settlement bridges. They need the very thing XRP was built to do. Now, pause that thought. Let's fly across the Atlantic. Because in the US, something eerily similar is happening. The Genius Act just passed, setting the first federal framework for stablecoins. It basically says, if you're properly backed and compliant, you're not a security. That's the green light Wall Street was waiting for. The SEC is now openly discussing its own digital asset sandbox, a safe zone for firms to test tokenized securities under SEC supervision. Commissioner Hester Peirce even called for a UK-US joint sandbox, a transatlantic collaboration that lets fintechs operate under aligned rules. And guess what just formed? The Transatlantic Task Force for Markets of the Future. Its entire goal? Harmonize regulation, smooth capital markets access, coordinate on crypto and tokenization. So if the UK is the pilot program, the US is about to become the scale model. And here's why this matters. In both systems, UK and US, regulators are describing the same missing piece: an interoperable, liquid, neutral settlement asset. That bridge between tokenized systems. In plain English, they need something like XRP, something that isn't a national currency, but connects all of them. Now, I'm not saying Ripple has already won, but when you read between the lines, the setup looks almost tailor-made. Because while other stablecoins, like USDC or Tether, are capped, siloed, or restricted by new limits, XRP sits outside those constraints. It's uncapped, interoperable, and sitting exactly where the regulators are now pointing their spotlight. But before we crown a winner, let's get real about what would actually need to happen. For XRP to become the backbone of this new sandbox era, a few things have to click. 1. Sandbox entrants would need to build systems that use XRP or RippleNet architecture. 2. Regulators would have to implicitly approve those systems by letting them operate. 3. Liquidity, partnerships, and cross-border rails would need to scale fast. If those dominoes fall, XRP doesn't just survive regulation, it becomes the regulation, the rails beneath it. And the timeline is no fantasy. Right now, sandbox entrants like ClearToken, Montis, BPX Markets, and Cellaix Finance are already listed on the Bank of England's own dashboard. They've cleared Gate 1, and live testing starts early 2026. In the same window, the UK Finance Consortium, which includes Barclays, HSBC, Lloyds, NatWest, is launching its GBDT tokenized deposits pilot. On the US side, federal agencies are drafting rulebooks for digital asset custody and interoperable payments, and the transatlantic task force is meeting behind closed doors to make sure both sides of the pond don't drift apart. So, while retail investors are watching charts and price bumps, the real action is happening in the policy papers, and the shared language is unmistakable. Tokenized systems, interoperable assets, shared rails. Of course, it's not guaranteed. Let's be fair, there are risks. Regulatory pushback could slow everything down. Technical hurdles could expose limitations in XRP's design. Other protocols, Chainlink, Quant, Cosmos, might compete as neutral bridges. And politically, regulators may prefer a public utility model rather than one private company's ledger. But every direction you look, the narrative is tightening. Banks need liquidity bridges. Regulators need interoperability. And Ripple, after years in the courtroom, is suddenly the only company with tested regulated infrastructure at global scale. That irony shouldn't be lost on anyone. So, what should we watch next? If any sandbox entrant publicly announces they're testing with Ripple's tech, that's confirmation signal number one. If new Bank of England or SEC documents reference interoperable bridge assets by name, that's number two. If the transatlantic task force releases a joint framework on tokenization, that's number three. Each one of those moments would mean this theory is no longer speculation, it's construction. Zoom out. And this looks less like a crackdown, and more like a coordinated reset. The UK and US aren't fighting crypto, they're taming it, bringing it under their roof. And in doing so, they're accidentally making XRP's case stronger than ever. Because every time they cap stablecoins, XRP's neutrality becomes more valuable. Every time they call for interoperability, Ripple's tech becomes more relevant. And every time they talk about bridges, well, that's literally the brand. So here's where we stand. The UK is building the sandbox, the US is building the framework, and together, they're building a networked financial system that could change how the world moves money. Whether XRP ends up at the heart of it or not, this is the direction of travel. The future of finance won't be about memcoins and speculation. It'll be about rails, compliance, and seamless settlement across borders. That's not hype. That's infrastructure in motion. So ask yourself, are regulators quietly betting on XRP, or are they just accidentally paving its highway? Either way, as 2026 approaches, the sandbox is filling with sand, and the bridges are being built. This time, the story isn't about a bull run. It's about a system reset. One that could turn XRP from a token into the plumbing of global finance.